I never imagined my daughter's earache would lead to a billionaire's sacrifice. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day my world spun so fast, I thought I might faint. My little girl, Mia, clutched her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. A mere earache, or so I thought. But in those moments, I was blind to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Mia was 6, her laughter like a melody that danced through our tiny apartment. My heart ached every time I saw her in pain. As I sat on the edge of her bed, her small hand trembled in mine, and I could feel the heat radiating from her small frame. My heart raced. The silence that followed was deafening. I called the doctor, my voice shaky as I explained her symptoms. The news came swiftly. An infection. One that could lead to serious complications. A lump formed in my throat as I hung up, staring at the calendar where I had scrawled reminders of simple things: playdates, ballet classes, grocery lists. That day, everything went dark. How could this happen? I whispered, my breath caught in my chest. My mind whirled, filled with terrifying images of what could be. I pictured the sterile smell of the hospital, the bright lights that would hurt her eyes. The thought made my stomach churn. My husband, Tom, rushed in. His face was ashen. I could see the worry etched in the lines around his eyes. "What did the doctor say?" he asked, his hand shaking. I couldn't bear to look at him. I felt like my world was unraveling. He took a step closer, his voice a low murmur. "Well, do whatever it takes," he promised, his determination palpable. Yet, I could hear the tightness in his voice. Hope flickered like a candle in the wind. Hours passed. Time dripped slowly, like raindrops on the windowpane. I held Mia close, her breasts ragged against my shoulder. I could feel every heartbeat of my little girl. I prayed, my thoughts scattered and frantic, each word a plea for her safety. Suddenly my phone buzzed, breaking the heavy silence. The name flashing on the screen nearly made me scream. A billionaire. An enigma wrapped in whispers and rumors. I never expected him to be part of our story. His company had funded the park where Mia spent hours playing. Yet, we had never crossed paths beyond the occasional article about his extravagant lifestyle. Mrs. Collins? His voice was deep, calm. "I know about MIA's condition. I can help." There was an urgency in his tone that sent shivers down my spine. How could he possibly help? What did that mean? Or was it a twisted joke? I felt panic rise. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my hands clammy. Was this a lifeline or a trap? "Why would you want to help us? I have resources." "I can arrange for the best treatment," he asserted, leaving me stunned. I squeezed my eyes shut, the weight of desperation pressing down on me. Then, he added something that knocked the breath from my lungs. "I can save her, but it requires a sacrifice." My heart sank. What did he mean? The door creaked open, and Tom stepped in, the light casting long shadows across the room. I could feel his eyes on me, sensing the turmoil within me. I had to decide. Was I willing to gamble on the words of a stranger? In that moment, I was frozen. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined. Could I trust him? What was he asking for? Everything felt suspended in time, the air thick with uncertainty and fear. My daughter's future rested on my shoulders, and the clock was ticking. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an amber glow through MIA's bedroom window, The weight of the stranger's words suffocated me. I could hardly breathe, the air thick with uncertainty. Every instinct screamed at me to protect my daughter at all costs. Yet here I stood, in a protracted moment of deliberation, caught between despair and an impossible chance of saving my little girl. "What are you saying?" I finally managed to whisper into the phone, forcing myself to focus on the velvet resonance of his voice, as if it were the only anchor I had in that fast unraveling world. Tom remained behind me, his presence a silent plea for clarity. "I am saying I can arrange for the finest specialists, Mrs. Collins. I can take care of her. But I need something from you, a personal commitment, a promise of cooperation. It's unconventional, but it can bring results. My pulse quickened. What does that mean? What kind of sacrifice are we talking about? I couldn't afford to let my heart dictate my choices. There was too much at stake, Mia's very life. Trust me. If you meet me, he'll explain everything." The line went dead, leaving me there with the silence that roared in my ears. The world around me seemed to collapse into an abyss, swirling with doubt and fear. But then, I looked down at Mia, whose face was a picture of innocence. She stirred slightly, a tiny frown crossing her lips, sending my heart plummeting into a deeper ocean of despair. Tom finally broke the silence. "Who is that?" I turned to him, my throat tight. "A billionaire. He says he can help Mia, if I agree to something." Tom's brows knit together, the lines of worry deepening on his forehead. "What kind of something? I don't know yet. He wants to meet. Maybe he's genuine, or maybe this is a mistake." I sank onto the edge of Mia's bed, consumed by an agonizing gnawing of my insides. "We're not making any decisions without discussing it first," Tom said firmly. "This isn't just about us. It's about Mia. But what if this was the one chance we had?" Each minute wasted felt like an eternity that drifted us farther from a solution. Hope and darkness tugged at me like feuding waves. "Mommy?" Mia's voice broke through my thoughts like a beam of light. I turned to her, frightened of what my turmoil might mean for her fragile spirit. Her little eyes blinked up at me, wide and trusting, unaware of the weight of her reality. "I don't feel so good." I rushed to her side, gathering her close in my arms. "I know, sweet pea. We just need to be brave." Suddenly she took my hand and drew in a deep breath, a small warrior in her own battle. "Do you think the doctor will make me all better?" A lump formed in my throat. "Yes, baby. I promise we'll do everything we can." I could feel Tom's gaze on me, filled with both concern and admiration. In that moment, Mia smiled faintly, and it felt like a shared promise, a beacon of resilience in the storm. Later that evening, as the stars glittered like scattered diamonds above us, a knock broke the silence, pulling my gaze to the door. It was an unexpected visitor, Lydia, our neighbor and the only person I had confided in about Mia's health. "I heard about what happened," she said, her voice warm and filled with empathy. "I brought you some soup. It's good for the soul, especially in tough times." Tears prickled at my eyes. It felt so minor, but her gesture was like a lifeline. Amid the overwhelming dread, here was a small token of hope, a reminder that kindness existed. "Lydia, thank you. This means so much." She smiled softly, staying just long enough to offer her comfort without overwhelming us. As I closed the door behind her, the warmth of the soup filled the room with heavenly scents, yet the flicker of joy was immediately eclipsed by the chilling pull of my earlier conversation. Tom found me again, lost in thought as I looked at the soup. "What if we took that meeting?" he suggested, tentative yet probing. "We won't know if we don't try. It could be our only chance." Courage swelled within me, almost, but doubt gnawed at the edges. What would I have to give? The stakes felt impossibly high. I met Tom's eyes, and he took my hand, anchoring me once more in our shared burden. "Together, we face whatever comes next," he assured me, his voice steady. A flicker of resolve surged through me. But just then, my phone buzzed with a message, shattering the fragile moment. My heart stumbled as I read it. "Meet me tomorrow at noon, or your daughter's condition will worsen. Time is running out." A cold wave of fear washed over me, sending my thoughts spiraling. The ultimatum felt like a knife at my throat, forcing my hand. My mind raced with the cruel irony. Desperation had turned to a countdown, and the walls closed and even more. This was no longer just a meeting. It was my daughter's life hanging in the balance. And now, the choice felt both impossible and imminent. The midday sun poured through the window, painting everything in a harsh light that felt almost mocking. I stood in the kitchen, stirring the soup Lydia had brought, its comforting aroma mingling with the anxiety that took residence in my chest. My fingers trembled against the metal spoon. The chaos inside me refusing to settle. Each stir was a futile attempt to find solace. "Me!" I called, forcing a smile as I turned around to see my daughter entry, her small feet padding softly on the floor. "Come join me for a taste test." At the sound of my voice, Mia's face transformed into a much-needed smile. She waddled into the kitchen, still wearing her favorite pink pajamas, her hair askew, a picture of innocence amidst turmoil. Despite my best efforts to shield her from the weight of the world, I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. The shadows of uncertainty loomed larger each day, and I feared they would overwhelm her bright spirit. "Is the soup ready?" she asked, her small voice full of hope. It felt so achingly normal, so absurdly sweet, that my heart clenched painfully. "Just about, sweet pea." I ladled some into a bowl and set it in front of her, a steaming reminder that life must go on even when everything felt so precarious. As I watched her take her first sip, I felt a surge of pride. Despite her discomfort, she managed to savor the flavors, her eyes lighting up with delight. "It's yummy, Mommy," she declared, her face breaking into a genuine smile. For a fleeting moment, everything felt right. "Lydia's soup has magical powers," I said, joining her at the table. I couldn't help but want to hold on to this moment, this sliver of happiness. But my phone buzzed again, shattering the fragile peace we had found. The bright screen glowed ominously, reminding me of the dialogue I was desperately trying to avoid. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Mia's voice pulled me from my thoughts, concern etching her small features. "Nothing, honey. Just work." I averted my gaze, though shame washed over me, knowing I was lying to her. "Okay," she said, accepting my words, but the worry didn't fade. I could see it in her eyes, a reflection of my own turmoil. With a heavy breath, I forced myself to be present, to walk a tightrope between her innocence and my darkened thoughts. We finished the meal together, but every laugh felt like an echo, reverberating in a hollow room. Later, as the sun began its descent, I found myself pacing the living room, staring out at the fading light. The message from the stranger loomed large in my mind, each word an insistent nag. I thought of Tom's face, filled with both determination and a hint of fear, was just as trapped in our predicament. When he walked through the door, the tension in the air thickened. "We need to talk," he said, his voice resolute. I nodded, the unease returning with a vengeance. "Did you receive the message?" He must have sensed my apprehension, his brow furrowed as he watched me struggle to find the words. "I did," I admitted, my breath hitching. "It feels like we're being cornered, Tom. What if taking that meeting really puts me in danger?" Tom stepped closer, his gaze steady and intense. "We're already in danger, Sarah. Choosing inaction could be the real threat here. He could be the only one who can help her. I know, but at what cost?" The desperation bubbled in my chest. What if he asks for something I can't give? And what if he doesn't? Tom's voice softened slightly. "This might be our best chance. If we don't act now, we risk losing her." His words hit me like a mantra, cycling through my brain as my heart waged war against my mind. I was terrified of what I might have to sacrifice, and terrified of walking into the unknown, of trusting a man I knew nothing about. Yet, watching Mia nestled safely on the couch, I felt the stirrings of resolve flickering like a candle against the wind. Suddenly, there was a deafening crash outside the window, and we turned to see an explosion of bright lights and chaos erupting a few doors down. I rushed to the window, my heart racing, and through the pane, I caught a glimpse of flashing lights, frantic voices, and a mob of people gathering. My breath quickened as fear clawed its way back into my throat. Me? I turned to find her staring wide-eyed, oblivious to the disaster unfolding. She looked up at me, something deep flickering in those trusting eyes, asking me to shelter her from the world. Just then, another message buzzed on my phone. My heart sank again as I read it. Do not trust anyone but me. The time for secrets is over. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. The weight of decision hung heavy, and panic clutched at my throat. The reality of our situation was unbearable. I turned to Tom, dread pooling in my stomach, trapped between making a choice for Mia's future or succumbing to the overwhelming fear that gripped me. Tell me what to do, my voice trembled. But before he could respond, we heard a rising wave of sirens, a cacophony of approaching sirens cutting through the stillness, an ominous chorus that signaled the descent of chaos and a darkness yet to come. I stood frozen, watching the kaleidoscope of emergency lights dance against the walls of our living room, pulsing in rhythm with a frantic heartbeat I could almost hear. Above the chaotic noise, a cold realization settled within me. Life, as I knew it, was shattering. The fear creeping in felt thick as fog and suffocating. Mia, stay here, I said, trying to sound calm even as dread twisted the words in my throat. Her trusting eyes widened, brimming with confusion, and I felt a pang of guilt for wanting her to be oblivious to the chaos outside our front door. What's happening? She asked, her small voice trembling with innocence. Just some loud noises, sweetie. Let's focus on something else, okay? I forced a smile, but inside, fragments of my courage flew away, scattered on the winds of uncertainty. Tom moved to the window beside me, squinting into the night, his furrowed brow a testament to the storm brewing in his mind. I see something strange. They're not just responding to an accident. There's too many lights, too many people. What do you mean? I asked, taking a step closer, my heart pounding at the thought of danger encroaching. Stay by the door, just in case. I'll check, he said, making a move toward the entryway. No. I uttered, my voice sharper than I intended. What if it's dangerous? The thought of him stepping into potential peril sent shivers down my spine. He paused, weighing my fear against his instinct to protect. We need information, Sarah. We can't just sit here while Mia. The realization of her vulnerability slammed into us both, and we turned in unison to catch her busily playing with her dolls, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering both outside and within us. Mia! Come here, please! I called, and she trotted over, clutching a doll and tilting her head, a picture of innocence in a sudden tempest. Tom looked at me, his expression caught somewhere between fear and resolve. Well, keep the door locked. We just need to know what we're dealing with. As Mia reached us, she tugged at my pants, seeking comfort. Mommy, I'm scared. Why is it so noisy? Because there are a lot of people trying to help someone. The lie felt heavy on my tongue, but a white lie was all I could offer to shield her from the truth. Well, be okay, sweetheart. Then, before I could blink, a knock rattled the front door, loud and urgent. My heart leaped into my throat. Stay here, I whispered to Mia, who looked up at me as if she sensed the tension electric in the air. She didn't move, her eyes still mirroring the fear dancing inside me. Tom edged toward the door, slowly turning the knob, his face hardened with determination despite our volatility. I wanted desperately for this to be over, yet a part of me held tightly to the possibility that help was on the other side, while another felt the icy fingers of dread gripping my spine. He threw open the door, revealing a tall figure dressed in dark Eteria police officer peppered with urgency, whose presence struck like a match against tinder. "There's been an incident in the area," he stated, his voice authoritative yet strangely comforting. "We advise staying indoors until we have assessed the situation." I swallowed hard, uncertainty still shimmering in the air. "What kind of incident?" "Just a precaution," he said. "There was a car accident involving a fugitive's vehicle. We're pursuing leads and need to ensure no one wanders into harm's way." His words sent shockwaves through me, calling into question all our previous fears. A fugitive? This was not just an accident. What about children? I found my voice, heart racing. "Is it safe here?" The officer nodded, though his face betrayed a flicker of worry. "As long as you stay secured inside, yes. But please remain vigilant. You have to be aware of your surroundings." "Okay," I replied, but the thin veneer of calm shattered, my instincts screaming that this was yet another warning bell, a prelude to worse things yet to come. The officer took a step back, ready to return to the chaos outside, but Tom stopped him. "Wait, did you see anything unusual? Anyone approaching the vicinity?" The officer hesitated, then glanced down the darkened street before replying, "Just be careful. There have been reports of sudden gatherings, people that may or may not be linked to anything. Just avoid any confrontations." A sudden wave of instinct hit me like an electric shock, and I turned to Tom, my eyes wide. The message. The man who contacted Mayhem must be connected to this somehow. "Sarah, we can't jump to conclusions now," Tom said, though I could see the tension still fractured in him, fear mingling with a growing need to protect. "Whoever he is, he knows something. Something we need to know." Mia, still cradling her doll, looked between us, clutching it tighter. "Mommy, I want to play." "Not now, darling. We need to stay awake and be cautious, all right?" I whispered, kneeling to meet her eyes. "Can you be a braid girl for me? Just a little bit more?" She nodded, though confusion clouded her features. The officer glanced once more toward the chaos fading into the distance, a cautious glance before he stepped back into the night. "Stay safe," he called before disappearing into the darkness. As the door clicked shut, I reeled back against the counter, the weight of the world crushing me again. "Tom, what are we going to do?" "I don't know," he admitted, running his hand through his hair in frustration. "But we need to find that man. If he's our hope, then we have to reach out, no matter the risk." The fleeting possibility of a solution nestled into my heart, but so did a creeping anxiety. Just then, another message buzzed on my phone, causing a pulse of dread to thrum through me. It read, "Trust no one, not even him." My breath hitched again, and I glanced at Tom, the reality of our isolation weighing heavier than ever. We were standing on the edge of a precipice, with shadows of uncertainty cast over everything we cared for. "Sarah," Tom said, pulling me from my spiraling thoughts. "We need to decide now. If we take the chance and meet him, we might expose Mia to risk. Or save her," I thought bitterly, but didn't dare voice the words. In that moment neither of us blinked, caught in the grip of fear and resolve, teetering on the brink of a choice that would change everything. And as the sirens continued to wail in the distance, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives were about to diverge into a darkness we might never return from. The sirens echoed in the distance, a mournful wail that wrapped around our household, blending with the fraying threads of my resolve. I struggled to breathe, staring at the stubborn glow of my phone, the ominous message pulsing as if it were alive, taunting my anxious mind. "Trust no one, not even him." The words looped in my thoughts, embedding themselves deep into my consciousness. My gaze darted down to Mia, blissfully playing at my feet, unaware of the storm of fear brewing around her. "Mia, sweetheart," I said softly, tempted to pull her into my arms, but a small part of me feared I would never want to let her go again. "Can you play quietly for a bit?" Mommy and Daddy need to talk. She nodded, her brow furrowing slightly, as she moved to her corner of the living room, resuming her pretend tea party with her dolls. Each clink of plastic against what felt like a heartbeat of innocence, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within me. Tom moved closer, his presence a grounding force. "Sarah, we have to consider our options carefully," he said, his voice steady but laced with a current of urgency. "Meeting this man could be dangerous, but so could hiding." Hiding, I felt the weight of that word. It reverberated through the lonely core of my heart. I couldn't shake the fear that this very decision could unravel everything we had fought to protect. "But if we don't find him, we might never learn the truth," I responded, my voice hitching. "What if he knows something that could keep Mia safe?" "I know, but we can't just throw caution to the wind, either." He rubbed his forehead, frustration etched across his features. "This is bigger than just us. We're talking about criminals and possible threats. If he's connected to the incident, we're risking everything for answers." A small voice piped up from the side, breaking through the heavy air. "Is the bad man coming here?" "I don't want the bad man." Mia's concern tugged at my heart. "And oh, sweetie, we're safe," I said, forcing brightness into my voice. "Just some grown-up stuff to figure out. Why don't you show me how you can make tea for your dolls?" Her eyes lit up momentarily, and she returned to her game, pouring invisible tea into plastic cups while I fought against a wave of despair. How could I keep her safe when the world felt so precarious? "Tom, if we meet him, we need to take precautions." My mind raced, weaving through every possibility. There had to be some way to protect Mia, some way to ensure we weren't walking into a trap. "Like what?" Tom asked, brow furrowing. "Record the meeting. That way, if anything goes wrong or he tries to deceive us, we'll have evidence. And we can tell the police." The idea came to me like a flicker of light in the dark. "We should get someone we trust to watch out for us too." Tom clenched his jaw. "You're suggesting we involve the police, after everything? If this man truly is connected, we can't just stamp around making it obvious." I felt the rush of anger before it settled into a cold pit of dread in my stomach. "So we just back away? Do nothing? That's our best option? Not do nothing. Just think, Sarah." I watched his frustration bubble, wanting to scream that all I wanted was a plan, a way forward that didn't feel like tumbling down a bottomless abyss. "If you have an idea, please share it," I shouted, my voice breaking. He stepped back, breathing heavily, and my words hung between us, a fragile bridge over a widening chasm. I didn't mean to lash out, but the tension between us sparked like a live wire. Mia glanced up, concern scrunching her small features. "Mommy? Daddy? Can I have a cookie?" I crossed to her, kneeling down to run my fingers through her hair, seeking the comfort of her presence. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's get you a cookie." "It's okay." I offered a weak smile, casting a sideways glance at Tom, who seemed lost in his thoughts. I stood from Mia, moving into the kitchen to grab a snack, trying to breathe through the quagmire of emotions threatening to engulf me. Just as my fingers brushed over the cookie jar, my phone buzzed again, vibrating angrily against the count. A new message. "This one from an unknown number. Meet me at the corner of Maple and 5th if you want the truth. Midnight." My heart plummeted. I couldn't shake the feeling that gravity was pulling me into the depths of danger. I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder to Tom, who had followed me into the kitchen. His eyes widened at the sight of my frozen stance, the words on the screen illuminating his face with concern. "What is it?" he asked, voice low and heavy. "They want me to meet them," the words barely managed to escape my lips. Tom took a step forward, the intensity of our situation crashing down on us like an avalanche. "What do you mean, they?" A brief glance at Mia showed her still playing, oblivious, yet protecting her felt like an impossible weight. "I don't know," I whispered, choking on my next words. "Beauty could be our chance, our only chance. Or it could be a trap." He stared at me, and I could see the flicker of fear mirrored in his eyes. We can't just abandon caution. I know. But if this is real, if the man has information, we might not get another chance. In the silence that followed, a multitude of emotions flooded the air. Hope twisted with dread, and I didn't know if I was prepared for the path we might take. Sarah, we need to talk about Mia. What if something goes wrong? He stepped closer, fingertips brushing mine, desperate for clarity amid the chaos. Mia, I closed my eyes for a moment, a lump forming in my throat. I won't let anything happen to her. I promise. But as the sirens echoed again in the distant night, a more profound fear began to settle over me, heavier than any I had known before. Because in my gut, I sensed that somehow our lives were becoming entwined with shadows that would not easily let us go. A sharp knock at the door shattered the moment, piercing through the currents of dread spiraling around us. My stomach dropped. Was it the police again, or had something more sinister found its way to our home? Afraid to move, I exchanged a frantic glance with Tom, our hearts racing in synchronized trepidation. We were teetering on the edge, and I could only hope whatever waited for us beyond that threshold wouldn't drag us into the depths from which there would be no return. The knock echoed through the stillness, a demanding sound that shattered our fragile moment of quiet. My heart thundered in my chest as I exchanged glances with Tom, both of us frozen in a web of uncertainty and despair. Mia, sensing the shift, looked up from her dolls, wide-eyed and curious. "Mommy, who is it?" she asked, her voice a sweet tremor amidst the thick tension. "Stay here, baby," I whispered softly, more to ground myself than to keep her safe. "Just stay where you are." Tom stepped toward the door, his gaze flickering with apprehension. "We should check," he began, but his voice trailed off as another knock resounded, firmer this time, as if the stranger was intent on breaking through whatever facade we had left. "Wait," I urged, reaching out to grasp his arm. "What if it's I need to know?" He moved with careful steps toward the door, and I felt a chill slide down my spine as I watched him hesitate before turning the knob. "What if it's someone from the message?" I whispered, panic edging my voice. "I have to know." The door creaked open, and I held my breath, ready to rear back in case danger crashed through again. Before us stood a tall figure cloaked in shadows, the light from the hallway casting wavering lines over their face. My heart raced with fear as I strained to see the features, anxiety gnawing in my gut with each passing second. Can I help you?" Tom's voice broke the silence, but it was shaky and uncertain. "Cameron," the figure replied, their voice low yet clear, resonating like a bell in the tense air. A familiar name rolled through my memory, a half-formed recollection that raised the hairs on my arms. Cameron was Tom's former business partner, and someone with a reputation that had lingered long after their partnership had dissolved. "What do you want?" I felt my voice come out more forcefully than I intended, the protective instincts flaring within me. Cameron shifted, stepping closer, his features finally illuminated by the dim light of our home. He wore an expression of urgency, concern etched deep in the lines of his forehead. "I need to talk to you, both of you." "It's about the message." "What message?" Tom asked, his voice cool but laced with unease. I could sense that Tom was analyzing every movement, weighing the potential for danger against the overwhelming need for answers. The message hung between us, a dark cloud casting shadows over our already fraught situation. "The one that says to meet someone in the night," Cameron pressed, handsome features hardened with purpose. "I got word that you're being watched. This is bigger than you think." Panic surged through me. "Watched? By who? Why?" Cameron hesitated before running a hand through his hair, revealing the strain he felt. "I can only tell you that it's connected to the incident that you've been trying to unravel. There are people involved who will stop at nothing to keep the truth hidden. You have to trust me if you want to keep Mia safe. All this time you've known?" I couldn't help the bite that crept into my tone. "And now you decide to show up?" I wasn't sure until now, he admitted, his gaze dropping to the ground. But time is running out. You're in deeper than you think, and it's only going to get more dangerous from here. I cast a glance back at Mia, who had approached with tiny, cautious steps. She seemed oblivious, her innocence a stark reminder in the shadow of growing uncertainty. What do we do? I whispered to Tom, my heart racing. I don't know, he answered, the weight of every word heavy with turmoil. But we can't let her be alone in this. If you know something concrete, Cameron, we need answers. Cameron's expression shifted, urgency spiraling into a plea I'd never witnessed from him before. There are people who want to silence you. I can help you, but you need to avoid that meeting. It's a bait, a trap to draw you in and expose everything. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. We can't ignore it. What if it's true? What if it holds the key to her safety? The risk is too high, he insisted. If you walk into that meeting, you may not come back. This isn't your average confrontation. Tom looked at me, desperation flickering in his eyes. We have to protect Mia. At any cost. I nodded, that protective instinct kicking into high gear. But what about the answers, the truths that dance tantalizingly just out of reach? The tension between protecting my daughter and seeking answers twisted inside me, creating a pit of conflicting emotions I couldn't navigate alone. A sudden honking sound echoed from outside, loud and unsettling, dragging my focus back to the door. I turned towards the window, catching a glimpse of a black car idling at the curb, a figure seated inside, watching us intently. I suddenly felt a cold grip of realization. Someone was indeed watching. Tom, I gasped, my heart fluttering wildly. We need to go. The urgency leapt into action, an instinct to secure our daughter and our family. We can't trust Cameron, I whispered, yet deep down, I wrestled with the knowledge that he might be our only lifeline. Come on! Tom shouted, sweeping Mia into his protective embrace as we bolted for the door. But as we crossed the threshold, an unsettling thought weighed heavily on my heart. What truths would we have to sacrifice to keep Mia safe? And as the door swung shut behind us, I glanced back at Cameron, who wore an expression etched with frustration and worry. Run, was all he whispered as we stepped into the frigid air, creating a symphony of questions, fears, and a dawning awareness that the danger was only beginning. The chill of the night air wrapped around us like a blanket of dread as we hurriedly moved away from the house, my heart thumping wildly within my chest. The streetlights flickered above us, casting eerie shadows that danced along the pavement, mirroring the turmoil gnawing at my insides. With every step, I felt the weight of every decision pressing down, a relentless burden that refused to ease. Where do we go? Tom asked, urgency punctuating his words as we maneuvered around a parked car, keeping our voices low. Anywhere but here, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. They know where we live now. We can't go back. Mia squirmed in Tom's arms, her small body nestled against him, blissfully unaware of the gravity of the situation. How quickly her laughter had turned to silence, and my heart ached at the thought of shattering her innocence. Mommy, are we going to the playground? She piped up, her eyes sparkling with the hope that only a child can possess. Of course, sweetheart. I managed to inject a semblance of sincerity into my voice, but the bubbling stomach of anxiety twisted within me. What kind of game were we playing here? I felt like a juggler trying to keep too many balls in the air at once, each one teetering on the brink of disaster. Do you trust Cameron? Tom asked, his brow furrowed as we turned down a darkened side street, where the shadows seemed to swallow us whole. My heart clenched. I don't know. Part of me thinks he might be trying to help us, but a bigger part of me fears he's the reason we're in this mess. The memory of his face haunted me, the urgency woven into the fabric of his words echoing loudly despite the distance. Then we need to come up with a plan without him, Tom said firmly, voice thick with determination. I admired the way he held onto his resolve even while the world was crumbling around us. He was my anchor, but the very thought of how deeply we were entangled with darker forces made my head spin. As we walked, we passed a small cafe bathed in golden light spilling through the windows, a fierce contrast to the reality that enveloped us. I felt a yearning, a momentary desire for warmth and safety that this unassuming establishment seemed to offer. Perhaps a fleeting escape was possible, even if just for a moment. "Let's stop there," I suggested, gesturing toward the cafe. "We can talk inside, gather our thoughts." Tom hesitated, looking around as if to assess the safety of our surroundings. Then he nodded, eyes flashing with understanding. The cafe could be both a refuge and a strategy session, a place where we might discover more clarity away from prying eyes. Inside, the air was fragrant with coffee and baked goods, a cozy ambience that teased a sense of normalcy. We found a secluded booth in the far corner where we could witness the hustle and bustle without attracting unwanted attention. I slid into the booth across from Tom, my heart hammering like a drumbeat echoing my swirling thoughts. "What if we tell the authorities?" Tom asked, poring over our options. "They need to be aware of what's happening. We can't face this alone. Who do you trust?" I blurted, fear clawing at my throat. "What if they're involved? What if they just want to silence us?" The weight of my words settled in like an unwelcome truth, and Tom's eyes darkened with worry. "You have a point," he replied, visibly contorting with the gravity of the moment. "But we can't just run forever either. We have to figure out what they want." I glanced at Mia, who was busy tracing a pattern on the table with her tiny fingers, utterly lost in her world. That innocent girl, oblivious to the storm brewing around her. This was the reason I had to fight, the reason I had to keep her safe, no matter the cost. She deserves her childhood. I won't let them take it away from her. Tom stretched his hand across the table to meet mine, and I grasped it tightly, the warmth of connection providing a fleeting sense of security. Just then, the bell above the cafe door chimed, and I turned to see a figure step inside, silhouetted by the harsh fluorescent lighting. My breath caught in my throat. It was Cameron, and he wasn't alone. "Stay calm," Tom whispered, but I could hear the tension in his voice. I felt frozen, a deer in headlights, as Cameron's gaze locked onto us, a mixture of urgency and fear flashing across his features. The two other figures behind him, shadows against the light, stepped in closely, their eyes scanning the room as if hunting for prey. Panic surged once again, igniting a flight response. "Tom, we have to go," I hissed, pulling at his arm. But Cameron approached our table, his expression turning from concern to one of fierce determination. "Listen to me," he said, voice low and urgent. "We don't have time. They're here." My heart raced, threads of fear intertwining with a newfound adrenaline. "Who's here?" I stammered, glaring at the other two men who had now fully entered the room, glances darting around suspiciously. Cameron leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "The people I warned you about. They know you're here, and they aren't going to stop. We need an immediate plan." As he spoke, the cafe door swung open again, this time with a force that rattled my bones. A tall figure dressed in a tailored suit stepped in, a predatory glint in his eyes, as he scanned the interior. My stomach dropped, a harbinger of the danger that now felt undeniably palpable. "Cameron!" the man boomed, causing heads to turn in shock. "You're making a big mistake." The finality in his tone slammed against me like a physical barrier, a shocking realization settling in. The trap had already been laid, and we had unwittingly walked right into it. "Run!" I shouted, heart hammering as I pulled Mia to her feet, clinging to the fleeting hope that we could escape this nightmare together. But just as we turned to bolt, another voice rang out, shattering the brief illusion of hope. "And where do you think you're going?" It wasn't just a voice. It was a dark echo of a past I had tried desperately to leave behind. Each word resonated like a bell tolling, announcing an end I never thought would arrive. My body froze with realization, and the world around me went dark as uncertainty enveloped me in an unbreakable grip. "Mia!" I cried, my heart plummeting as I felt everything I loved slipping through my fingers. The cafe's air, filled with warm aromas and friendly chatter, suddenly felt cold and suffocating as I stood frozen, my mind racing. The man who had just spoken, a darkly familiar figure, was the last person I ever wanted to confront again. Richard. The figure from my past I had fought so hard to escape. Fear mingled with confusion, seeping into my bones like a chilling wind. "Mia, hold on to me!" I managed to shout, but as I turned to grab my daughter's hand, I heard her soft voice speak almost dreamily. "Mommy, who's that man?" The innocence in her voice added a layer of heartache to the moment. I forced a smile to her, even as my stomach churned at the revulsion flooding through me. Richard's gaze fell on her, and for a moment I could see the wheels turning in his mind. "Fascinating, isn't she?" he said, a smirk creeping onto his lips. "Such potential. A flower waiting to bloom, wouldn't you say, Cameron? Stay away from her," Tom shouted, stepping in front of Mia protectively, his stance solid like a fortress. I saw the defiance in his eyes, a flicker of hope bolstered by his unwavering need to keep us safe. I loved him for that, but doubt crept in, twisting like a knife in my "Go, is it enough?" Cameron shifted, trying to gauge Richard's movements. "This is a mistake, Richard," he said evenly, eyes narrowing. Richard threw his head back, laughter echoing mockingly through the cafe, causing heads to turn once more. His attention remained locked on us, and in that moment, I realized I was no longer just fighting for our past. I was fighting for our future. My heart thudded gruesomely loud against my ribs. "A warning. Let her go, or you'll regret it," Tom insisted bravely. The terrifying truth was that Tom had no idea how monstrous Richard could be. My breath hitched as the love of my life faced off with a man whose power, evoking an old terror I had thought buried deep within me. But then, in the flickering light of the cafe, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A frail old woman, seated at a nearby table, looked up from her book. Her silver hair haloed her gentle features. She locked eyes with me, and in that instant, she offered a smile, not just any smile, but one that radiated warmth and an inexplicable sense of understanding. I felt an unexpected surge of hope wash over me, a tiny light flickering amidst the encroaching darkness. "Let's see how brave you are when it's not just you in danger, Tom," Richard taunted, his eyes glinting like the knife he could easily wield against us. "Mommy?" Mia tugged at my arm, her innocent question jolting me back to reality. I knelt in front of her, searching her eyes for the semblance of safety I desperately wanted to provide. "We'll be okay, sweetheart. Just stay close." Richard's eyes grew sharper, hatred simmering beneath his facade of calm. "No, my dear. I think it's time you learn the truth about your mother's past. After all, it's an entertaining tale, wouldn't you agree? I'm not playing your games, Richard," I rasped, my voice shaky yet filled with defiance. "I'll never let you dictate our lives again." Tom moved forward, still standing guard, but I could feel the soft pull of panic in his body language. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice unwavering. Richard straightened, pushing past any semblance of civility. "What I want? I want what was promised to me. And this little girl," he gestured toward Mia, "is not merely an innocent bystander in this power play. She has a much bigger part in this story than either of you realize. Leave her out of this." I screamed, my heart racing. Every instinct in me screamed for me to protect my daughter from this man's grasp, from whatever weight she carried by being my child. I could feel the darkness of my past creeping back to settle in like a beast lying in wait. "Cut to the chase, Richard," Cameron interjected, his tone low and furious. "What do you want with him?" A small crowd began to form in the cafe, prying eyes now witnessing this confrontation, a scene that played out far too openly. My heart ached with vulnerability as I faced the suffocating weight of their scrutiny. I want what him owed, Richard replied, unfazed by the crowd. And if that means some sacrifices must be made. He let the sentence dangle, a sinister suggestion hanging in the air like smoke. My stomach turned at the implications. Cameron took a step closer, the intention clear in his posture. Well, die before you touch them. Not if you know what's good for you, Richard shot back, and in that menacing moment, things began to spiral. I could see his game, the way he thrived off the chaos he instigated. I understood that he was setting traps with every word he spoke, and in the fragmented seconds that followed, everything collided. Mia reached for my hand, an instinctual beacon of trust. Tom's body was taut, like a bowstring pulled alarming tight. Cameron, caught in a crossfire that wasn't his own, was a wild card in a game rife with secrets. The old woman rose from her table. "You want take them," she said softly but with authority that commanded respect. The whole cafe fell silent as her frail yet powerful demeanor shifted the atmosphere. "You have no right to threaten what does not belong to you." Richard's eyes darted toward her. Irritation seeped through his calm facade. "And who are you to intervene in my business?" She held his gaze, unwavering. "I am the shield of the innocent, and the keeper of the forgotten. You will not win here." Her words struck deep within me, igniting something I had thought lost: courage, resilience, and the promise of protection. I realized we weren't just victims here. We were the seeds of our own fate. The power of her presence sparked something significant. I seized MIA's hand tighter and prepared to move, the resolve woven in my heart smoldering with a newfound intensity. But before we could bolt, Richard interjected, a wicked smile flashing across his face. "And if you do run, remember, every decision has its cost. Your daughter deserves to know the price of defiance." My heart stopped, dread curling into my thoughts, as heavy implications thumped in my ears. In that tense moment, I understood. The stakes were higher than I had ever imagined, entwined in secrets that extended further than I dared acknowledge. As they began to close in, something primal awakened in me. It wasn't just Mia and Tom I was fighting for. It was the very essence of who I was, and everything I refused to allow them to take. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battle ahead. "We're not afraid of you. You're outnumbered," I breathed, hiding the quaver in my voice. But even as I spoke, the unrelenting storm brewed within me, anxiety thrumming louder. We were standing on the precipice of a revelation that could shatter everything. "Let's see how brave you truly are, then," Richard responded, a smug menace thick in his voice. "Because this is just the beginning. The fate of our lives hung in the balance, a cliffhanger etched not just in our present, but echoing into a future that was perilously uncertain." As I stared at Richard, the world around us began to fade. The bustling cafe, once filled with laughter and life, felt like a desolate stage set for a horrifying play. MIA's small hand in mine provided the only anchor in the swirling chaos. My heart raced as I tried to pierce through Richard's deceptive words, searching for a chink in his facade, a way to protect my family from the encroaching storm he represented. "Keep your distance," Tom warned, his voice low but steady, hands balling into fists at his sides, ready to defend us at a moment's notice. I admired his courage, but beneath my admiration was a gnawing fear that chipped away at my resolve. What if this was it? What if Richard followed through on his empty threats? The elderly woman stepped in front of us, her slight frame somehow imposing against the backdrop of Richard's looming presence. "Bullying is no match for bravery. You think terror gives you power, but it only reveals your weakness," she said, her voice calm yet overflowing with conviction. There was something about her that seemed almost ethereal, as though she had seen the worst of humanity and emerged unbroken. My breath faltered for a second, possibly the first glimmer of solace I had felt since Richard's arrival. "Who are you?" I whispered, a question more for myself than anyone else, a glimmer of hope igniting in the dark corners of my mind. Was it possible that a small act of kindness, a stranger standing up for us, was the catalyst I needed to find my own strength? Richard rolled his eyes, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. I would advise you to mind your own business, old woman. The more you involve yourself, the more you risk implications you cannot comprehend. The words cut into me like shards of glass. I took a deep breath, willing myself to hold on to the flicker of courage slowly spreading through me. We know what you are, Richard. We know what you represent, and we will not bow to your demands. There was a moment, fleeting yet palpable, where I felt MIA's grip tighten around my fingers, her childlike innocence offering me the strength I had buried within myself. In that instant, the noise of the cafe faded to a distant buzz, and the air around us crackled with unspoken resolve. Richard stepped closer, his smile unnervingly sickly sweet. "Ah, darling Mia. What a beautiful little girl you are. Just think of the powers and privileges that come with her name. You have no idea what your mother has kept from you." MIA's brows furrowed in confusion, her innocence juxtaposed against the unimaginable weight of his words. "Mommy?" she whispered, fear flickering in her wide eyes, as she reached up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "Shush, sweetheart. Everything will be okay," I whispered back, forcing a smile despite the turmoil raging inside me. Paris might have been beautiful, but this moment felt like a painfully skewed fairy tale, twisted and dark. I would not let him taint her perception of me any longer. "Leave her alone," Tom barked, moving in closer, a lion defending its pride. My heart swelled with love yet pulsed with fear for his safety. The cafe, filled with strangers whose expressions ranged from horror to curiosity, surrounded us like spectators at the gallows. I felt exposed, our fractured lives laid bare for all to see. Richard, unfazed by Tom's fierce protectiveness, smiled wider, revealing teeth sharpened by menace. "Leave her alone? My dear boy, she's merely a pawn in a game that you cannot comprehend. But don't worry, you'll be able to shield her for now." The tension thickened in the air, wrapping around us like a noose. I felt lost, desperately trying to remember how I had survived before in the face of oppression. My thoughts flitted back to the years spent in hiding, the constant thrum of anxiety that made it impossible to breathe. Before I could formulate a plan, that glimmer of hope from the elderly woman reached out like a lifeline. "You can't rewrite someone's destiny, Richard. This is their life to lead, not yours to control," she asserted firmly. In that unexpected act of solidarity, I saw the faintest flicker of hope bloom. Inspiration gripped me like a vice, and suddenly, I felt the urge to reclaim my narrative. "This isn't just my story," I declared, allowing my voice to rise above the din. "It's ours. My daughter, my partner, and me. We're not afraid of you, Richard, and we will fight to protect what's ours." His eyes darkened, fury flaring in his expression, but something shifted in the atmosphere around us too. The cafe patrons, once mere bystanders, had collectively lowered their heads, leaning in, as if the tide was beginning to turn against him. Richard's gaze darted to the crowd, and the tension escalated. "You think this is a game? You don't know what I'm capable of," he hissed, his jeering laughter echoing back in response. Suddenly, amidst the stillness, the frail old woman stepped forward and pointed toward Richard. "You don't intimidate anyone here. Leave now, and perhaps you'll see more of me in your future. I promise to remind you that the shadows you hide in can't always shield you." Was it a chance for us to gather strength against him? Had Richard miscalculated the loyalty found amongst strangers? He glared at her, hesitating, and I seized the moment. "We will return to our lives, away from your darkness. You don't hold power over us anymore." Anger twisted Richard's features as he stepped back, weighing options like a predator ready to pounce. "This isn't over, and when your bravado falters, I will be waiting." With that, he turned sharply, striding away, leaving silence in his wake. When the door swung shut behind him, breaths were held, and an electric relief radiated through every nook of the cafe. I collapsed onto a nearby chair, drawing Mia into my arms, my body heavy with adrenaline, but lightened by the promise of freedom. Tom knelt beside us, wrapping his arms around us both, but as I looked around, my heart sank when I saw the spark of recognition in the old woman's eyes, a look that spoke of her knowing Richard more than we'd realized. "Thank you," I said softly to her, voicing the gratitude swelling in my chest. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, her eyes like shimmering pools of wisdom. "You've only begun to fight the past, dear. That darkness is cunning and will strike when you least expect it." Her words resonated like an echo within me, stirring up the uncertainty I thought I had silenced. How long before he resurfaced? What would be the next price? As we made to leave the cafe, I took a breath, unwilling to let fear dictate my life once more. But somewhere in the periphery of my mind, unease curled like smoke refusing to dissipate. Just as we reached the entrance, a sudden realization struck. MIA's ear turned bright red against the dusky light, her little hand clutching her head. "Mommy, my ear hurts." A chill slashed through my chest, an urgent panic rising within. Had Richard planted another seed of darkness, one that would threaten our fragile bond? I felt the ground shift beneath me as dread rushed through me, spinning the hope that had begun to build into an uncertain, tumultuous storm. It seemed that Richard's vengeance had only just begun. The world outside the cafe spun and swirled, but inside, everything felt frozen. I cradled MIA's small frame in my arms, panic surging as her words echoed, "Mommy, my ear hurts." My heart clenched like a vice, and I felt the remnants of the recent confrontation fall away as if they were insignificant compared to this. "Mia," I whispered, rubbing her back gently, as if I could transfer my strength to her. "We'll take care of it, I promise." "You're brave. You're so brave, sweetheart." But her innocent trust shattered me, leaving sharp edges of guilt where resolutions should have flourished. Tom's protective hold around us shifted since my growing anxiety. "Let's call a doctor," he suggested, determination hardening his tone. But something deeper gripped my heart. The urgency of MIA's health had intensified, clawing at the fragments that dared to believe that we had escaped Richard's grasp. "Just give me a moment," I breathed, anchoring myself in the sheer force of love I felt for Mia. I took a deep breath, willing my heart to beat steadily, forcing calm into our world. "Mia, look at me," I said softly, tilting her chin so that her large, innocent eyes met mine. "Do you trust Mommy?" "I do," she explained, her voice tiny yet resolute amid my inner chaos, and I felt warmth blossom within me, reminding me of every time I had fought for her. "Then we're going to be just fine." I let the rhythm of my voice blanket over her, steadying the tremors that racked my spirit. Tom's forehead creased with concern as he searched my eyes. "We need to find a quiet place, somewhere safe. I know someone who can help." For a fleeting moment, it felt as though we'd entered a separate world, one untouched by Richard's looming threat, but reality intruded like a jagged shard. "Tom, Richard isn't done with us," I voiced, pulling Mia closer, feeling her warmth seep into me like a balm. "What he said, hell come back." A tremor passed through me, and there was something terrifyingly true in Richard's words. The past was a fanged beast, and I had barely taken a step back before it threatened to swallow me whole again. "Not today," Tom stated with a fierce determination as we positioned Mia between us, his eyes locked onto mine. "We keep moving forward. You and I, together. He will not take this away from us." Just as we prepared to push through the cafe's heavy door, a surge of light flooded the entryway. An unfamiliar figure stood framed against the luminous background, a woman with fiery red hair and piercing green eyes that flickered dartingly as they swept across the cafe. "Sarah," she called, pitching her voice to cut through the hum of murmurs in the room. The wariness in Tom's expression returned as the woman approached, her presence both striking and oddly familiar. "Who are you?" I asked, my heart racing, unable to shake the sense of awe threaded with caution. "Emily's," she declared, weaving her way through the scattered tables as if had been part of the cafe itself. "I know Emily's condition. You need to hurry. I can help." There was an urgency clinging to her words, a silent assurance that crackled in the air, resonating with the warmth of hope. "What do you mean?" I asked, a flicker of disbelief crossing my features. "Richard might have people watching, and your family is in danger, but I have resources," she declared, a resolve that felt like a lighthouse amidst the storm. "I can get you to safety, but you have to trust me." "Trust?" Tom echoed, skepticism lining his voice. My heart tugged in different directions, grappling with the edge of risk that came with deciding whether to trust a stranger anew. "Yes," Elise met his gaze, unflinching. "The sooner you accept, the sooner we can get out of here. Mia needs treatment. I have quick access to medical professionals who can treat her properly, away from danger." I took a breath, my gaze swiveling back to Mia, whose eyes glimmered with both uncertainty and an adventurous thrill. In that moment, I felt something click inside me, an amalgamation of hope and dread that formed a fragile bridge. "Okay," I said, glancing over at Tom, who was still holding on to the reserves of skepticism. I think we should do this." His face tightened, but an understanding flickered in his gaze. This was new territory, one that felt both perilous and promising. "All right," Tom finally conceded. "Let's go." Elise nodded, and as she hurriedly ushered us out the door, the world outside felt alien, each sound amplified, and I became acutely aware of the weight of the world still upon us. Time felt suspended, caught in an unending tension, and I clutched Mia tighter than ever, my heart racing with each step. Elise led us down an alleyway, the shadows wrapping around us like a thick fog. "They'll take you to a safe house nearby," she explained. "We'll regroup there, and it'll help Mia with her pain. We can figure out our next move." "Thank you," I uttered, sincerity weaving its way into my voice, but an undercurrent of fear began to coil around my heart again. "Trust me," she replied, glancing back at Mia, her expression softening. "That little girl has an incredible spirit. I can feel it. We're going to keep her safe." Mia looked between us, innocence still shimmering in those bright eyes. "Are we going to have ice cream?" she piped up, her voice like a gentle breeze cutting through the tension. I smiled, my heart swelling with love that threatened to burst. "Yes, sweetheart. Once we get through this." The air was sharp, every inhale mingled with uncertainty, yet somehow the promise of a brighter tomorrow peeked through the cracks. As we arrived at the safe house, I felt the darkness waiting at the edges, a residual haunt of the fight that lingered, but I knew I wouldn't let it extinguish the light that Mia had rekindled in me. Inside, we took a breath, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I allowed myself to let go of burdens that had weighed me down. There was still a long journey ahead of us, filled with the specter of Richard and the unknown, but I felt a rush of gratitude for this next chapter. It was time to push back against the shadows together. The revelation dawned deep within me. No matter what it took, I would keep fighting for my family, and this battle would end only when we found our peace. A promise symbolized not just by the words I spoke, but by the victory that awaited us on the other side. With a soft squeeze of Mia's hand, I felt the determination burn within me. "Let's take this one step at a time, starting now," I whispered, a vow etched against every breath I took, because I wouldn't let fear write our story any longer. And in that moment, amidst uncertainty, I found clarity. We were not just survivors. We were warriors of our destiny, protecting the brightest light I had ever known. It was time to face the truth, whatever it might be, and emerge from the shadows, unyielding. The fight for Mia's future had only just begun, and with love at my side, I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Together, I murmured, and the word hung in the air, solid and unshakably beacon guiding us home.